Welcome back to Sai's Adventure Overlanding channel. Um, Today I got a special treat for you guys. It's kind of a treat to me too. Uh, so over Christmas I rented out a Bushwhacker Teardrop. It's the 10 SS model. It's a two-person Teardrop. It's got AC, air conditioning. Got a little kitchen in the back. I'll do a full walkthrough around it. But before I rented this, I wasn't able to find much information about the camper besides just what the dealer is telling you and the specs and stuff. I won't go through all the total specs on it, but there's a few channels that will tell you the whole spec of it. But yeah, so I rented it and took it down to Texas at Big Bend National Park. I towed it with my 4Runner, and I'm gonna tell you guys some of the pros and cons and what I liked and not liked about it, and what kind of upgrades that Bushwhacker could do or you could do yourself if you end up going this route. And it's a fairly light teardrop. It's about 1,300 pounds or so. It's got pretty good ground clearance, as you can see with the walkthrough video. So it tows pretty light. You don't really feel it much behind you. So here's some of the cons, or let's start with the pros. Here's some of the pros that I felt that is good about this camper. Number one, it's light, so it tows really good. It's got heat and air conditioning, so cold weather, it's pretty much you can use it cold or warm weather. And we were down in Texas during after Christmas, and it was about 70 degrees out there, so we ended up not having to use the air conditioning. But during the night, it can get pretty cold on the way down. It got down to in the 30s, so we turned the heat on, the furnace on a little here and there. So that's always a plus there, to have heat and air conditioning. And another pro is it's got all-terrain tires, and it's got pretty good ground clearance, so you can take it off-road. I mean, I wouldn't do any rock climbing, but just off-road to get to dirt road or a little beaten path to get to your campsite, which I did. I towed it to Big Bend, and there's a few dirt path and stuff like that, and it took it pretty well, even though it doesn't have a off-road suspension on it. It's just got the clearance, but it towed pretty good, even in the dirt, and going up and down some of those rocks, smaller rocks. Nothing crazy. I wouldn't take it anywhere crazy, because the suspension, it doesn't have any leaf and shocks to it, so it's not gonna flex. And back to the size, and it's not wide, so it's about as wide as my 4Runner. So anywhere I can fit my 4Runner through, the camper will go through. And it's still small enough I can still go through the drive-through lane if you want to go to McDonald's or something like that. And it's got pretty good storage inside and the back, where you got your little kitchen in the back. And the cushion's pretty good. It's pretty comfortable. I mean, I slept in it all 7 nights, and with my wife and kids, and we didn't complain about it at all. So it's fairly good. And the stove, it does run on a propane, and same with the heater. So that's kind of a pro there. I just carried an extra propane tank, which I didn't even end up having to use. So it doesn't use much propane on there. Another pro is it's got a roof rack, so you can easily haul your kayaks or canoes, whatever you want to use up there. You can even mount as for more storage, like mount a rack up there for more storage if you want. And let's go to the cons. The cons is this thing is about $10,000 new, and it's fairly on the lower expensive end for the Teardrop. So you feel it. The material isn't as great. It feels pretty cheap, and everything's thin, and it feels like it probably wouldn't hold up, really long. And even the stove back there is pretty cheap, and it's not a refrigerator or a cooler, that's something that I think Bushwhacker should have upped their game on there. It's just a Coleman cooler. So what a cooler means is that it's only going to cool it down 40 degrees below whatever the air temperature is at. So for example, if it's 30 degrees out there and you got it plugged in, it'll probably freeze up whatever you got in there. And if it's 100 degrees outside, it'll just chill it down to 60. So as you can see, if it's real hot out, it's not really gonna cool it down enough for where you would want it at. So that's one thing that if you end up buying this little Teardrop, that'd probably be the first upgrade. Is to a real refrigerator cooler type deal. And there's plenty of those that you could swap it out, and it'll fit in there. It's a pretty good size area in there where you can easily mount a ARB or even something like a 40 quart cooler refrigerator type of deal. Going back to the material back there, up in the even the shocks for holding up the rear hatch is it's not heavy duty enough. So if you get a little bit of wind, like when we were out in we also stopped at Padre Island, and where you get a little wind, it kind of, when you open it, you got to be careful, otherwise it'll just fling you right up, and it might even snap off. So that's something that should be upgraded for Bushwhacker. But as long as you're careful, it isn't too bad. And another con is it's got a 20-gallon fresh tank, but it's got no gray tank, so it'll just kind of spill out underneath the camper, which is no big deal. You can hook the hose up to it and bring it out like 10 feet or so, and have it run away from wherever you're camping at. And then back in the kitchen again, the label on the two stove propane is really cheap. We ran it for a week, and the label was starting to peel already from the heat. So that's something that Bushwhacker gotta upgrade on. Other than that, I mean, it's fairly good. I mean, everything's inside, so it's fast setup. And we didn't stay. The only place we stayed longer than one night was at Big Bend National Park, where we stayed at the campsite for 2 nights. So other than that, I mean, we were there for a night, kept moving along. So it's easy setup. Everything's always in there, so you can park and just sleep in there. Even we slept at a few truck stops. It was nice. Everything's in there. Just throw the kids in there, and they're in bed already. So here it is. Here's the walk around of the Bushwhacker Teardrop 10S model. So there's 2 models. This is the SS model with the single door. So as you can see, it's got the higher ground clearance. Here's the inside. There's your heater there, fuse box, your radio control, and here's your CO2 sensor. That's your for your cable. Here's your heater control, light switch, LED, and so you got your storage back here. This slides open and close. Also shelving's up here, and then you got your vents up here. Your vents are up here. It pulls and it pushes out, pulls in or brings it in or pushes it out. So here's the kitchen, kitchen part of it. You got your 2 stove here, sink, and your cooler here with some storage down here. And some lights up here. Here's your air vents, electrical outlet, your fill. Yeah. So how does it tow with the 4Runner? I think it tows pretty good, as you know, it's fairly light. So and it's not tall. It's just a little taller than my 4Runner. So I mean, as far as gas mileage wise, it all depends on what you're towing with. But with my 4Runner, I was getting anywhere from 11 to 13 miles per gallon. Again, that's doing about 65 to 72. And I do have a lot strap on the top of my 4Runner, so it drags a little bit. But I think it's pretty decent gas mileage for towing a Teardrop. And the 4Runner doesn't get good gas mileage to begin with anyways. I mean, without the camper on the interstate, I'll probably get anywhere from 14 to 17. So, I mean, you drop down a few miles per gallon with it. So, overall, I'd say I'm pretty happy with the tow and how it handles in the gas mileage. But again, then it all depends on what you're towing with. It could veer, but I mean, the camper's pretty light, so you can probably tow it with anything, even a car. I mean, as long as it's got 1,500 pound tow rating, you could probably do it. But on windy days, when we were out in Texas, out there when it can get pretty windy, and it does blow the trailer back and forth a little bit, so I wouldn't recommend towing it with a small car. If you're going out that way on a windy day, it could get pretty sketchy there. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it tows awesome. yeah, so hopefully that's able to help you guys out. For anyone looking at the Bushwhacker Teardrop 10 SS. If I missed anything or didn't answer any questions that you want to know, just comment below and I will answer the best that I can. And thanks again.